Okay, so in Mark 7, there is a story about the ritual hand washing, and I'll just read off the text really quick. This translation, the Tree of Life version, is actually the only English version to translate Mark 7:19 correctly. The text does not say, "Thus Jesus declared all foods clean." All it says is purifying all foods. It says, "Now the Pharisees and some of the Torah scholars who had come from Jerusalem gathered around Yeshua, and they saw that some of his disciples were eating bread with unclean hands, that is, not washed. For the Pharisees and all the Jewish people do not eat unless they wash their hands up to the elbow, keeping the tradition of the elders. And when they come from the marketplace, they do not eat unless they perform a ritual washing. There are many other traditions they have received and hold, such as the washing of cups, pitchers, and copper vessels. The Pharisees and Torah scholars questioned Yeshua, 'Why don't your disciples walk according to the tradition of the elders? Why do they eat bread with unwashed hands?' And he said to them, 'Rightly did Isaiah prophesy about you hypocrites, as it is written, This people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me, and in vain they worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandments of men. Having left behind the commandment of God, you hold on to the tradition of men.' He was also telling them, 'You set aside the commandments of God in order that you may validate your own tradition. For Moses said, Honor your father and your mother, and he who speaks evil of father or mother must be put to death. But you say, if anyone tells his father or mother, whatever you might have gained from me is korban, that is, an offering to God, then you no longer permit him to do anything for his father or mother, making void the word of God with your tradition that you handed down, and you do many such things.' Then Yeshua called the crowd again and began saying to them, 'Hear me, everyone, and understand. There is nothing outside the man that can make him unholy by going into him. Rather, it is what comes out of the man that makes the man unholy.'
Can I stop you?
When he had left the crowd and he entered the house, his disciples questioned him about the parable, and he said to them, 'Are you then also lacking understanding? Don't you grasp that whatever goes into the man cannot make him unholy? For it does not enter into the heart, but into the stomach, and then goes out in the sewer, cleansing all foods.'"
Now, I would be curious semantically if it is unholy or impure. Those are two distinctive ritual categories.
How's the video on there? Is that okay?
Yeah, it's
The
fine.
link? Okay.
Yeah.
Basically, in his book, The Jewish Gospels, in the chapter Jesus kept kosher, Daniel Boyarin states that there's nothing in this text here that would give rise to Jesus doing away with kosher laws, because that's not the subject of this discussion. What he says is, the Greek translation literally says purifying all foods, and literally what he says, the parable that he tells later, he's lifting it on a more spiritual level, the things that come out of your heart, lust, adultery, greed. But he says literally, even given a literal view, when he's not talking of that parable, Jesus is going back to the Torah, and he's saying, look, it's not what goes into your body that defiles you, only what comes out. Semen, fluxes of blood, gonorrhea, stuff like that come out of your body, they defile you, but things that go in cannot defile you. And he seems to be attacking this Pharisaic innovation because it goes against the very nature of the written Torah, which states that things that come in the body do not defile, that's what comes out. And he's very consistent with this argument too, which I think gives it a lot more credence. But that's his basic thing. He says the Galileans who had their practices here were being intruded upon in this passage by the Pharisees, who were going around trying to gather up disciples for their version of the faith. And this is really, I think, textually what seems to have angered Yeshua so much as a rabbi of his disciples, because they were intruding on his own circle and trying to import their interpretation over his. And I mean, really looking at it textually, he seems to be giving a very conservative view of the Torah, and not necessarily minding traditions or even observing traditions unless they go against the actual intent of the Torah, which clearly this Pharisaic tradition does seem to be going against the original intent. Because they were teaching, the Talmud says that all much all poop is pure,
Yes, yes.
ritually pure.
The elephant eating the
But he's
pig
saying
anecdote.
if you eat with unwashed hands, you teach that if you eat with unwashed hands, food going into your body will defile your body, but then you also teach that all poop is pure. So how can it go in your body and be pure and then come into the latrine and then be pure again? You know,
Yeah.
what causes it to change?
Yeah.
So he's kind of bringing them out on the inconsistency of their argument as well.
Yeah. FFOZ's Biblically Kosher book actually cites that Talmudic anecdote of the elephant who eats the pig.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that what comes out of the elephant is no longer pig, therefore is ritually pure,
Mm-hmm.
aka purging all meats.
And that's what he's talking about,
Yeah.
you know, purifying all foods.
Yeah.
He's saying it goes in your body, it comes out again, it's pure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a system of category that doesn't really exist today in the modern
That's
mind.
the problem with the Christian translation, thus Jesus declared all foods clean, because that's not the subject of the discussion. Hand washing is. Whether that eating with unwashed hands causes you to be defiled. And even, you know, even the kosher food, they weren't even eating kosher, any kind of meat. They were eating bread. So that gets you a little more deeper in the discussion. But he's like, you know, purifying all foods, purging all foods. He's saying it goes in your body, it comes out as pure.
Yeah.
So.
All right. That's it. Oh, well, bravo. And I am stopping the recording now.